name's Daniel Winkler. I'm Winkler Knives and Winkler Knives II. I was born in 1956 in Boone, North Carolina. Never lived anywhere else. I haven't found any place else I liked any better. So my start into interest in knives and tomahawks stemmed from a childhood growing up with a father that took me hunting and fishing and a lot of outdoors activities. So as time passed and I moved along and got older, when I was in high school, 1975, I made my first knife. It came from an interest in shooting black powder weapons and the history involved with that. So I started making equipment to outfit myself in a earlier time period, the early settlement of this country. And from there, I did it sort of as a hobby for several years. And as I went along to different events, like powder rendezvous and shooting matches, I would sometimes make a knife and put it on a blanket for a blanket sale or as a trade item or a blanket shoot prize. And as I did more and got better, people started showing more of an interest in it. So I started making a few to sell. So I operated as just a part-time hobby sort of business from the early 1980s until 1988. During that time, I started building a customer base that I felt like was strong enough to sustain a full-time move. So I moved full-time into knife making in 1988. At the same time, I met and started working with Karen Shook, who I'm now married to, and we developed a very strong design style with the combination of the knife and her sheaths. So we developed it into a full-time business in 1988. This is one of Karen's sheaths and one of my forged knives that we did that stemmed from this interest in history and outdoor activities and black powder shooting and interest in history. We worked with the forged pieces exclusively from 1988 until about 2006, with just a few deviations from that along the way, one of which is very important, which I'll get back to. So we developed a customer base that would sustain us both with a full-time income, making one-of-a-kind, historically styled, very distinctive looking knife and sheath sets. So as part of this, we would travel and do craft shows and knife shows. And at one of these craft shows that we did, it was in Asheville, North Carolina. It was on the Biltmore estate. And while we were there, we had learned about this film production, Last of the Mohicans, that was located, the production offices were located in Asheville. So while we were there at this show, we had a case full of this historically styled knives, and we looked up the production offices, showed them what we did, told them a little bit about what we were doing, and they immediately put us in touch with the props master for Last of the Mohicans. So we set up a meeting with him while we're in the area. He immediately saw a good connection with what we were making with the movie Last of the Mohicans, and we met with him and director Michael Mann and other production people. And from that day through filming, we were a part of the movie process, The Last of the Mohicans. Most of what we made for that were for the principal characters. We had some secondary character parts, but mostly we worked with the principals on developing and making the knives and tomahawks that you see in the movie. That really gave a boost to our overall business. When the movie came out and magazine articles came out about the film, we became much more recognized in the industry, which was a nice boost and helped with our with our financial side of the knife business. It's a difficult business to make a living in because you're, in this case, making a one-of-a-kind forged pieces where they're higher dollar than what most people are used to spending for knives, and so you very much limit your market. But the promotion we got through Last of the Mohicans was very helpful. An important thing that came from that was that film came out in the early 90s, and not long after the film was released, a Navy SEAL had been at a survival course, and one of the things that he was looking for, not through the course, but through his needs as a SEAL and his teams, was they wanted a small, very strong, compact combination breach and combat axe. So when this SEAL saw the movie Last of the Mohicans and noticed the tomahawks, he did some inquiring into who made some of the equipment, which ultimately led back to me. So here in the early 90s, I worked with this SEAL and we developed a full tang compact combination breach and combat axe, which I made a prototype and he took back to his team, and the team loved it. It was approved, but at the time there was not any funding for it. So this SEAL actually carried it himself during his deployments during the first Gulf War. After that conflict wound down, he came back into civilian life as a game warden, and he still carried this axe with him and as part of his gear kit as a game warden. It all changed again after 9/11, and this former SEAL operator decided his calling was to go back into the military, which he did, but this time he moved into Army Special Operations. Still carrying this axe, his teammates were impressed with the functionality and the design and carryability of this axe, and they got back in touch with me to help outfit his new team, which I did, and I think I hand forged and hand finished 18 more axes very similar to this first one to outfit this team. They also did some deployment exchanges with some of the SEAL teams, and so these axes actually started being shown around the special operation community, and that started Winkler Knives II. And Winkler Knives II was developed because of the need for more pieces, more axes and knives than I could make one at a time with my old hand-forged one-at-a-time operation. When they needed multiple parts, multiple pieces to outfit these teams, they're still small teams, but more than one individual can make, I developed a production method to get the properties and functionality that I'd put into the hand-forged axes, but doing it in a stock removal method, utilizing the same materials and heat treatment processes, and everything about the design is basically the same. It's just instead of hand forged and me doing every operation on every axe, I set up a limited production facility where I hired assistants that would come in and I would train and work with, and they would specialize in certain areas of this making process under my direction, and develop these tools with high performance capabilities, custom hands-on construction methods, but we could produce numbers that would fulfill the needs of these teams. So Winkler Knives II was produced. That was in 2006. We initially set it up basically to make this equipment for these smaller special operation units. And as we did so, and the word of mouth started spreading throughout the military community, it also spread into the civilian community and the knife enthusiasts, law enforcement, first responders, and we started getting more and more calls for the knives and axes that we were making. So that was kind of taking it from the hand forged to the Winkler Knives II, how that progression came about. And during this time, Karen and I were still making the one-of-a-kind hand-forged, more collector pieces, which we still do, but on a very limited basis. And then Karen also has great talents in the business end, which is a necessary evil of this. We have to not only make tools that will perform and have a design appeal, but we have to do it in a way that we don't create issues with taxes and production commitments and OSHA regulations, and everything has to come together and be done in a very planned and legal, and it's just got to be done right, from everything from the actual making and sharpening of the knife to buying the supplies it takes and not running out of stuff. So Karen and I worked very well together, making the knives and axes from the Winkler Knives hand forged side, and it also transitioned into a very homogeneous blend of business and manufacturing knowledge, to where we were able to have steady growth from the beginning, and it's continuing that way.